yo, you step this way, you get played out of position.
So I've just heard, in addition to that Riyadh card on August the 16th, Ray Ford, former WBA featherweight champion, will take on Abraham Nova. Obviously, Kakashi was supposed to fight Ray Ford, but he's injured.
But that's what they all say.
I think that's a good substitute opponent on short notice. I expect Ray Ford to win, but he'll have a few issues with the size of Abraham Nova, his aggressive style, and his speed. Abraham took Shaquille Foster to a split decision, and Shaqi is still current WBC super featherweight champion. And this fight will be contested at 130. But Abraham, his defense is a little leaky, and he's a little erratic. But he's still a bona fide contender. That's a good fight. If Ray Ford is successful, he's currently ranked number 4 with the WBC, WBA, and IBF, and number 5 with the WBO. He must be due some type of title shot.
Boxing
beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
So according to Edgar Berlanga's wife, only one of Hamza Shiraz's hand wraps were removed after the fight. The right hand was removed for inspection, but it was the left hand that dropped her husband. Why wasn't that wrap taken off immediately? She's also saying the wrap had yellow stains, which could be because there was a hard cast under it. She also speculated that the reason for this yellow tint could be resin or epoxy, both completely illegal. Are Team Berlanga claiming they wasn't present when Shiraz was getting his hands wrapped? And if they were present, Team Shiraz must have done a really serious magic trick in tampering with Hamza's hand wraps. Team Berlanga definitely had somebody present when Andy Lee was wrapping Shiraz's hands. Team Berlanga arrived late to the Louis Armstrong Arena, and whoever was overseeing the hand wraps on Edgar Berlanga's behalf got there late. But the New York State Athletic Commission made sure there was no hand wrapping done until the delegated member from Edgar Berlanga's team was there to witness the hand wrapping. Now, who is Edgar's wife accusing of foul play? Because according to Andy Lee, he cut off the right hand wrap. That's given to the State Athletic Commission for inspection. But Andy Lee said they stopped him from cutting the second wrap off. For what reason, I don't know. And perhaps more context is needed. Did they eventually tell him to cut off the wrap and take the wrap for investigation? Or was he left to cut the wrap off when the inspectors were gone, which goes against the New York State Athletic Commission rules? What's the story? That needs to be answered. So, is Edgar's wife accusing the New York State Athletic Commission of foul play? Are they all in it together? Team Shiraz, the commission, perhaps Turkey. We know Shiraz was Turkey's guy. It's a serious accusation. She says she wants an investigation, and she said she has proof. Well, bring the proof, and if it's bona fide, that will lead to an investigation. You can't just demand an investigation and you don't have no physical evidence. And as for Edgar getting his wife to throw these accusations around, surely he wouldn't hide behind his wife. From what people are saying, the New York State Athletic Commission are very strict. Once your hands are being wrapped, you're basically not out of sight from an inspector until the wraps are taken off post-fight. So Edgar hasn't said anything himself, probably wisely so, because as soon as names start being mentioned, and we're talking about some powerful people here, Berlanga better be careful they don't start cleaning out their bank accounts.
But yo, you step this way, you get played out of position.
Right, Edward, 32 hours ago we spoke and you said about Chris Eubank Jr. maybe retiring. I caught up with Napa maybe 2 hours before the news dropped regarding kind of like his negotiations with Seller and everything. All of a sudden, the Ring Riyadh season Seller are no longer involved with the rematch for Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. What on earth has happened?
I think it's probably frustration from Turki Al-Sheikh, if I'm honest. I mean, we've spent the last month, Seller, Ring Magazine, Matchroom, Boxer, putting together options for the date. The date was always going to be the 20th or the 27th of September. There was correspondence from Boxer to say those dates should be fine, no problem. Boxer were involved in conversations with Seller and with venues planning meetings to go to this incredible stadium that we had booked. And then all of a sudden, once TURKI Al-Sheikh announces it, Chris Eubank says, "Oh, I'm not ready for September 20th." It's like, what do you mean? And now I'm being told by his team that he was never ready for September 20th. And I'm like, you mean to tell me we've wasted a month of our time planning venues, meeting with potential venues, when you were never ever ready, but even your own team was involved in those conversations? I said to Napa today, I love Napa, we don't have any beef. I said, this don't look good for you, mate. The story don't add up. You can't have your team in meetings for venues to go on September 20th and then you say to us you were never available.
But yo, you step this way, you get played out of position.
See, the thing is, if you know your name could come up, you've got to be ready. You've got to be ready. Right now, Turkey's booking fighters for certain cards, even though they've got a fight coming up before that. Now, some people think that's a problem. I don't think that's a problem at all. World-rated fighters are not fighting more than 4 times a year. They should be ready unless they're injured. They should be ready. And fighters need incentives. They need incentives. They need a semi-final. Okay, you win that one, then you're invited to the big game with Turkey. And if you're the favourite in that semi-final, your opponent has also an incentive to pull off an upset. And maybe he gets the call up. It's one of the best situations boxing has had. And that's from an old school boxing fan. And Turkey is basically calling up Eddie Hearn, calling up Frank Warren, top ranked PBC and boxer. I want him, I want him, I want him. I want this fight and this fight. That's the date, that's the location, that's the purses. But in fairness to Team EUBANK, it looks like Turkey announced the fight before Chris agreed his terms of the deal, which is not unusual for Turkey. Turkey will announce things before terms are agreed. He's very impulsive. And obviously that's going to hit a snag sometimes. But if what Eddie is saying is true, and Napa was saying Chris was never available for the 20th of September, Eddie Hearn is right. It doesn't look good for Team EUBANK. Napa has got his work cut out doing damage control on this one. It's Friday today, Thursday, he said, trying to fix it all today. Chris wants to fight. He has not ducked Conor, wants to fight him this year. But you've got to work them Riyadh season GEA cards in accordance with their schedule. You can't schedule Riyadh season cards. You can't do that. You're not financing the projects. Now, Conor BENN saying that EUBANK Jr. is running scared. He's getting 10 million to fight someone he's beat already.
Oh, running for your life by the night, running from your wife. Yay!
Now, Conor has heard that Chris is concerned about the weight stipulation, perhaps the 160-pound weight limit to do the fight, or the 10-pound rehydration clause, which Chris signed for both fights. Now, the first fight was in April, and he was hospitalized, and he was in a bad way, right? He's a 35-year-old athlete, boiling down to make 160 with a 10-pound rehydration clause. There's a lot to consider here. Conor BENN doesn't have to be that good to finish Chris Eubank's career this year, with Chris fighting under them conditions, which he signed up for, right? Don't be on here talking about the British Boxing Board of Control shouldn't have signed off on the fight being at 160. Chris can still make good money not fighting Conor BENN. Might not get 10 million. He probably won't get 10 million. But here's a guy, the so-called people's champion, has got his manager Napa saying Chris gets nothing out of fighting Hamza Shiraz. Now, he might not get the 10 million that he'll get for fighting Conor, but he'll get 4 or 5 million. That's a good purse. It's a great purse. And yes, Hamza Shiraz is one of the biggest stars, young stars, in boxing right now. And he can fight Hamza at a weight where he doesn't have to worry about drying out or a rehydration clause. He doesn't have to worry about none of them things. But your so-called people's champion is shook to take that fight. And Eddie Hearn is right. He may well retire. Because without Conor BENN and without the Saudis, he's not getting the type of purses that it's worth risking his life for. Go fight Carlos Adames at 160. There'd be no rehydration clause. Go fight him for the belt that Shiraz couldn't win. Go fight Lara. No rehydration clause. Move up. Fight Shiraz. The options are September the 20th, Conor BENN, or move up and fight Hamza. Or he should just retire and just be done with it. Hamza's moved above him in the pecking order to get the Canelo fight as far as Turkey was talking. He was talking about Hamza fighting Canelo, not Chris. Just retire. And that's for Conor talking about he wants to get up and fight Shakur and all that hot-ish. Shakur handled it very well. We're boxers. You're not going to do that. Let's act like boxers. Conor's boxing IQ compared to Shakur's is the equivalent of a caveman. Punches, chance and no more is all he has against Shakur. Although Shakur punked out a little when he said if he fights Conor, he wants a rehydration clause put in there. IFL TV probed Eddie Hearn about what he knew about Ben Shalom's new deal, which he'll be announcing soon, but Eddie wouldn't give the game away. He did say, paraphrasing, that it wasn't a major platform, and he'll be totally gutted at the collapse of EUBANK versus BENN. Because when he starts this new venture on this new platform, there's still a lot of work to do with the likes of Ben Whittaker, Fraser Clark. EUBANK has a partnership and not a deal there. Caroline Dubois, a lot of work to do. A whole lot of work and no big in-house fights. Biggest worry will obviously be an exodus if some of them don't consider the new platform big enough for them to fight on. I have a feeling a few of his current fighters, when their contracts run out, are going to end up on DAZN with either Frank or Eddie. And added to that, some of the fighters might actually still have contracts with Sky, but not with Ben Shalom.
But yo, you step this way, you get played out of position.
What's the holdup with BAKRAM? BAKRAM Mulatayev he wants to fight everybody. Why can't we get him a fight?
I want to tell you something. This is truth and this is right. I speak with 2-3 fighters about him and they are scared. They doesn't want to fight.
Well, Virgil Ortiz is on social media.
I don't want to say names.
Yes.
I don't want to say names. We put good money in the table for many fighters and they disappeared.
Oh, running for your life by the night, running from your wife. Yikes.
Decide to...
Turkey offered Boots the Virgil Ortiz fight, February this year, on the undercard of Dmitry Bivol Beterbiev 2. Boots declined the fight, saying he wants to unify belts at 147, which he did against Stanionis, but trying to snatch the other 2 belts hasn't been as easy as making that fight. Now it looks like Turkey may have offered Boots the BAKRAM Matazaliev fight, and he may have offered Boots the Virgil Ortiz fight, and according to Virgil Ortiz, from what they're saying, he was asking for the Boots fight, and he was asking for smoke with Matazaliev, and for that, he must be commended. But it looks like Turkey's talking about Boots, and Turkey said he offered Boots fights, and he asked for a tune-up, and he told Boots, I'm not a charity, we do real fights here. What does he need a tune-up for? Eddie did damage control for him in February, and he's going to have to be doing it again. I mean, it's hard to promote a guy who just wants to take tune-ups, and his last 3 opponents have not been elite fighters, but you want tune-ups. But Eddie has to stop sucking up to a lot of his American signings, because sometimes it looks like he's a bit wary. If he says anything, they won't re-sign. But so the fuck what? We don't want to see Boots in no bullcrap fights, no tune-ups. We want to see him take some real fights. Boots hasn't had a serious test as a pro yet. I'm not saying he hasn't fought anyone. He got his belt through the email, didn't have to fight Crawford. He was initiated into his title run against David Avanesi, and he was just coming off a knockout defeat against Terence Crawford. Then he was ordered to fight his mandatory, an Eastern European fighter who he fought before in a stinker of a fight, and he didn't look too good in neither the first fight or the second fight, but it was a comfortable win. The Stanionis fight, we were hoping Stanionis could be a little more competitive, and this was Boots' best performance, career best performance. Gotta give him credit, he looked very good, but the critics are going to say that Stanionis was inactive and perhaps too far gone, and Boots kicked his ass. What more tune-ups are there? Is Boots a little apprehensive to make that big step up and take a 50-50 fight? Because that's what it is. He hasn't been in a 50-50 yet, and this is what Turkey is trying to promote. 50-50 fights, competitive fights. Boots Ennis is a man that Eddie Hearn tries to tell us is knocking on the door of being a pound-for-pound fighter. We expect you to have some 50-50s and not be looking for tune-ups. I mean, when Virgil moved up from 147 to 154, he jumped straight in against Serhij Boychuk, which we all thought was going to be a tough fight for that WBC interim belt. And in all truth, he got floored in that fight, Virgil, And he lost the fight. You watch it properly, he lost the fight. And they had to rob Burchak via majority decision. Then he took on Israel Madrimov, who had only previously lost to Terence Crawford. These are two tough fights, no tune-ups. But Boots is another fighter who's got paid extremely well since he hooked up with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. And because of that, it might just be very difficult to put him in them big fights unless they pay him astronomical money that the fight's not worth.
Oh, running for your life by the night, running from your wife. Yikes.
Is that the road that Boots is going down?
But yo, you step this way, you get played out of position.
BAKRAM was negotiating to fight Josh Kelly in a voluntary. That fight fell through, and he'd be taking on Erickson Lubin. His mandatory.
Boxing beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
So the first fight between Usyk and Dubois in 2023. Dubois weighed in 233. Usyk weighed in around 221. His weights haven't really fluctuated. Very consistent. Daniel has always weighed around 235, 240, 245. He weighed 248 for the Joshua fight. That could be a career heaviest, actually. But he's weighed in 243, 5 pounds lighter for the Usyk fight. You don't want to gas down the stretch with Usyk. He's known for his championship round finishes. He probably came in 248 for Joshua because Joshua is 260 plus. He's a unit, isn't he? And he's not as fast as Usyk. They were speculating in the week on TalkSport that Daniel is going to weigh in a career heaviest. They were looking at Daniel and saying he's bulked up, but he's actually lighter than he was for the Joshua fight. So 233 for the first fight, 245 for this fight. He's growing into his man strength, so he's naturally going to bulk up. But Daniel is not really a mauling wrestling type, not really his fight. So the extra bulk, it's hard to tell how that's going to play out in the fight. Most people I've heard breaking down the fight are expecting a different Daniel from the first fight. It's hard to say if Daniel will be different from the first fight because the last 3 opponents he's fought are not Alexander Usyk. Daniel needs to get off to a good start, not overthink it, get that jab off, don't be afraid to lead with power punches. The added bulk could affect the foot speed, and the foot speed battle is where Usyk is beating these heavyweights. And it's not just the speed, it's the technique, whether he's defending or attacking. It's the feet. But while everybody is saying it's going to be a different Daniel, they're focusing on the decline of Alexander Usyk. Well, I'm not really seeing that. The first Dubois fight, Usyk was letting his hands go a lot more than when he fought Joshua. Maybe he had a little more respect than Joshua because of Joshua's reputation. 3-belt, 2-time unified champion. He was letting his hands go, letting them fly. Perhaps because the fight was in Poland, which borders the Ukraine, and that was as close a homecoming as Usyk is going to get. With the crowd on his side, he just decided to be a little more cavalier. So with that said, perhaps the Wembley crowd could spur Dubois on for an all-time best career performance. Who knows? Don't count the crowd out as a factor in how this plays out tomorrow. Though in saying that, the vast majority of Usyk's title fights have been on the road. He's the ultimate road warrior. There was controversy made about the right hand to the body in the first fight. The referee called a low blow and Usyk took full advantage of the time to recover. Near on 4 minutes before he got up, Usyk regained control and won by knockout in the 9th, knocking Daniel out with a jab. Now, a lot of people are keeping it very simple, thinking if Daniel just goes back down to the body, there's no reason why he can't replicate the same problem for Usyk in the rematch. A popular narrative is that Usyk doesn't like it to the body. But what type of punches Dubois is able to land is going to depend on the feet. It's got to get in position. And Usyk don't give you one look in terms of you trying to hit him. But I could actually see Dubois hurting him to the body again. I could see that. If Daniel didn't attack the body and ended up losing, there will be questions why he didn't go back to the body. So we've got all the experts asking, how do you strategize to beat Usyk? We don't have all the answers because he's still undefeated, but going to the body must be a key part of that strategy, I would imagine. I think Daniel's punches are too basic, aside from the body shots, are too basic to beat Usyk. He's got the jab, the 1-2, can throw a good looping right hand. Usyk seemed almost shocked that Joshua got caught with that looping right hand by Daniel, saying he shouldn't be leaning back to avoid that punch. You've got to use your feet to control the distance between that punch, and that makes sense. Daniel appears to be very confident, very self-motivated, focused in. I don't want to talk about the last fight. I'm here to damage, destroy, chaos. I want all the belts. But how confident will he be after 4, 5, 6 rounds where he's likely to be outboxed? We don't know. Daniel has improved a lot. We don't know. Usyk is 38. Aging fighters could just age overnight and fall apart unexpectedly. I think Dubois needs circumstances in his favour, and that could be a potential route to victory. I thought the body punch was low, and apart from that, Daniel did okay in there, but Usyk dominated. Daniel has the power to change the course of any fight. He does. But one shot is not going to do it. He's got to be able to put his punches together. And no one's been able to do that so far with Usyk. Got to break up his rhythm. Usyk hits harder than advertised. He definitely does. For some reason, there's this train of thought that he's not an aggressive fighter, when that's not true. Looking at Usyk's 2 performances against Fury and then analysing Usyk is in decline is a gross miscalculation. Fury being in decline doesn't stop him from being that same very awkward 6'8", switching from southpaw to orthodox heavyweight. I would argue that Usyk could actually be slightly improving. His performances at heavyweight have went up and up. A lot of people say, well, look at all the punishment he took in the second fight with Joshua. He's in decline. No, that was a better Joshua in the second fight, and Usyk still rose to the occasion and found that championship round finish. There's an argument that Usyk is a better heavyweight at 38 than when he was 36 and fought Daniel Dubois. And Usyk will relish the opportunity to fight a more orthodox style boxer like Daniel Dubois than the 24 rounds he did with Tyson Fury, who even in decline is very fast for a man that size. Fast with his hands, not feet, with his hands. He doesn't have to worry about Dubois trying to walk him into some sophisticated punches like Fury. Doesn't have to worry about that shit there. Dubois hits very hard, and he's going to try and apply pressure, and he's physically very strong. But it's nothing that Usyk hasn't seen before in terms of technique. Also, this fight wasn't mandated. Usyk asked for the fight. He asked for it. His big incentive to be 2-time undisputed heavyweight champion? Nah, I don't really think so. I think the low blow controversy has got to him a little, and he's going to want to do a more clinical job this time around. But I think Dubois is going to put up stubborn resistance beyond what he put up last time. I think Daniel will give it his best, but the combinations, the angles, and that ability not to get hit flush to the head is going to give Daniel all the issues he wants. Tyson Fury managed to land some nice uppercuts, especially in that first fight. But Daniel doesn't have that type of punch in his arsenal. He's built differently to Fury. Doesn't have the leverage, the reach, and Fury does have the ability to walk his opponents onto punches when he's at his best. It's not Daniel. They fight different. Dubois' technique is too basic for me to pick him to win, but it could be a tougher fight than last time out. Usyk on points, possible 11th, 12th round stoppage is how I've got this.
But yo, you step this way, you get played out of position.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.